We are live for episode 4 of Football Over Family. Today we're going to be talking about all things JJ Watt. We are going to be talking about a bunch of different, cap savings, restructures, cuts, extensions that have been happening around the NFL, as well as continuing our divisional breakdowns. We're going to be going through both the AFC North and the NFC North on what is going to be our second to last divisional breakdown before free agency starts, which is very exciting.
March 15th tampering period, man. I took the day off from work, PTO.
Oh, hey.
Hey,
Same here. Same here.
we should just run it live. A special edition Football Over Family. Just run
That
it
would
live.
be fun, just hanging out. But then there would be like that awkward 2 hours where nothing happens, and you're just like, we're just sitting here eating cake.
Like what you could say, like what that 6 a.m.
Yeah.
No, for me, 9 a.m. for you, like from 9 to 11. I bet it's gonna be so fun.
Hopefully. I think there's been a lot that's happened already that's really exciting, and I think there's just so many things that are being forced upon teams with the cap issues.
Yeah.
A lot of vets are moving teams already, and it's pretty cool.
I wanted to also say from those who watched our episode last week, this week won't be as long. We had so much to go through last week because of the 12 teams, and we knew we had to kind of lump a bunch in order to make it by this March 15th day. We had a big goal when we started the podcast, was to get through each team, to give a breakdown. And so we better knew what teams we're looking for when we hit free agency. It was just a way for us to deeper analyze these teams and provide the information. So this week will be a little bit smoother, not nearly as long, but it'll be more fun and more energy. So let's get after it.
Let's do it. All right. So we already kind of gave you a little breakdown of what we're going to be talking about as far as the news and all those other things. We'll also go over a little bit briefly on the franchise tag, because the franchise tag deadline is going to be on Tuesday the 9th. So that is very close. We've already had a couple of tags. We have a bunch of speculative people that are going to be tagged. I'll talk about that a little bit, as well as Gavin. And then we're also going to be talking about restricted free agents. It's always an interesting topic coming around the free agency start period, because everybody's always like, oh, that guy's a restricted free agent. He's 2 years into his NFL career. He looks great. Let's just sign him. It's not that easy.
No.
It's not that easy with those guys. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, dive into that a little bit more. And I guess we can just start off with the news. Gavin, the biggest news of the last week was
JJ Watt, posting a picture of himself working out in a Cardinals shirt. I thought it was interesting. He said he'd reached out to a friend. He got multiple shirts made from all the different teams.
Yep.
And
five teams with the finalists.
And I was like, what were they? Let us know. But what was interesting is the contract, the money that he was able to get, despite the fact he's been so injured, despite the fact that he's not a spring chicken anymore, he's definitely coming towards the end of his career. So he's in the big money phase of the short contracts with high incentives. And so, wow, 2 years, $28 million with incentives up to $32 million is a big deal for a guy who's had his injury history. Puts him on the Cardinals team, man. They're scary if they could get people back. They're kind of strapped in terms of cap a little bit, especially with this deal. Especially I know, but they had other priorities going into it, and then they made a splash.
Yeah, they made the contract in a way that it's not going to impact them this year, really. He's only hitting for about $5 million on the cap for this season. He's going to be about, I think it was $17 million the following season, and then the way that the bonuses are going to play out is that he's basically under contract for 2 years with a third year of just dead money.
Yeah.
So the team gave him a deal that basically pays him a lot of guarantees. So it's a 2-year deal with the hope that they win a Super Bowl and maybe he resigns a third year. Otherwise, they're going to owe him some dead money. But by then, the salary cap will be back up, and it won't matter.
Exactly. So. A lot of teams are going to be doing that same type of deal where they're relying on the fact that next year, okay, we'll get some people back in the seats, hopefully, and the TV contract will impact the salary cap a little bit more, and we're back up to $210 million.
For sure.
Versus the 180.
Yeah, I think a lot of people immediately went to, okay, JJ Watt's a Cardinal. We all thought he was going to be, who knows, going and signing for really low money at the Steelers to play with his brothers. or he's going to be going to a team that's, really up there as far as competing for a Super Bowl. And like the Bills was one that was mentioned very heavily, as well as the Browns. People talked about the Titans. Lots of talks about maybe even like the Packers. And it was really interesting to see all those teams. And I mean, who didn't reach out to JJ Watt, right?
Yeah.
Like, if
why
you're not trying
on a guy who could make a difference.
Yeah, if you're
no
not
one's
trying,
ever questioned his ability to impact a game.
yeah,
No one's ever questioned it.
Yeah, and if you're not trying to sign a guy with over 100 career sacks, what are you doing, right?
Yeah,
come on.
but no one was like, "Oh, he's going to the Cardinals for sure. That's the spot." And that's
never even once heard that.
That was like it was big news because I was like, "Man, he like," and a lot of people were critical right away. Oh, he's not ring chasing; he's chasing the money.
Yeah,
he's chasing the money. And I was like, "Hey, listen, the Cardinals." There are a few games. They play a lot of close games in a tough division. They would have made the playoffs if Kyler was healthy in that final Week 17 game. I truly believe that they're a contending team. Yes. And so I don't think – I didn't like that criticism for him.
I didn't either.
I think he went to a team that has promise.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. For that exact reason.
Yeah, and
there was a lot of flack that both the Cardinals and JJ Watt got for this, which I think was wrongfully given, because I think this is a team that has a very good shot at competing for, definitely playoff contention, and definitely a team that could make a run with a special player like Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and who's running the ball there. Cliff Kingsbury can hopefully make some sort of offensive game plan that could really electrify that team.
And not to mention, when you add J.J. Watt to the people they already have on that defense in terms of playmakers, I know Patrick Peterson's a free agent, Hassan Reddick, some guys that they got to work with.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you put him next to Chandler Jones, and maybe you can restructure Chandler a little bit to make things a little lighter on the team. But, man, those are the guys like two of the best premier pass rushers, game wreckers in the NFL. If you put those two guys side by side, that's like the best pairing we've seen in a long time.
And then like Budda Baker on the back end is doing his thing. He's top safety in the NFL. But, okay. Well, yeah. So we'll talk about JJ Watt more. I was told, I don't know yet what's in stock or what's in store for the JJ Watt stuff, but we'll get there. The other big thing that happened to be about Big Ben.
Yeah. Big Ben, yeah. I mean, so there are reports, over the last few weeks, we're not kind of non-committal towards Big Ben at first, media facing, but we obviously know now behind the scenes, the Steelers are working on their guy. They were like, hey, what can we do to keep you here? What's like kind of the middle ground we can find? Because the truth is, they were like, if Ben wanted all the money, they were going to let him go. If he wanted to be too expensive, they're not in a position to mess around. They had to let him go if he was like, I need $28 million.
He was very, very kind to this
team. Very
team.
kind. He
very
dropped
kind
to $14 million, I believe.
He took a direct pay cut. Everybody
$5
thinks
million
that this
direct pay cut.
Everybody thinks this was a full restructure. This isn't your Drew Brees. Okay, this isn't your Big Ben last year pushing money and adding a year. This is a full-on Big Ben said, I will have less money.
$5 million.
And no human being out there ever needs to say, don't pay me $5 million. It's for the team. It's $5 million.
Yeah. And I want to know, like, I wonder if he's like, hey, I'll do this and I'm okay with it, but I want you to put this money towards this player.
Like a Juju back.
Yeah. Like, I really do wonder if that was part of it.
The recent report was Aaron Jones.
Okay, good.
Like that. If you're Big Ben, that makes sense. Yeah.
When has Big Ben been the best? It's when he's had a good running back that he takes the pressure off of him.
We'll talk about them pretty quickly here. They also have a lot of free agents on their offensive line, so maybe it's a pay my big guys, I want to stay upright. Type of thing.
Another big team that did a lot of moves that you were just referring to with the Saints and Drew Brees. They haven't really got to Drew Brees yet, but they did attack some of the other contracts. They released Thomas Morstead, as well as restructure some big guys in Davis, they're the linebacker, as well as Cameron Jordan.
Demario Davis. They restructured David Onyemata, Demario Davis, Will Lutz, and Cameron Jordan. So that was a couple
Josh Hill.
Their tight end, yes. That was a lot of cap saving moves. That gave them about $25 million in total cap. That still puts them at like negative $30 million. So they're still very far to go. And they already have restructured Drew Brees earlier in the offseason. It was one of the first moves they made, is basically putting him at his dead cap for retirement. So there isn't a lot of work they can do there unless they basically say, we'll sign Drew Brees to another 4 years and pay him out $10 million over the next 7 years each year. So they're kind of where they're at with him. It's really up to what are they going to do with the guys like Quan Alexander and other big earners like Ryan Ramczyk. So we'll talk about them next week, and we'll see a lot of their moves happen in that time. So
there's going to be a flurry of stuff that's going to happen in the next 10 days. Get ready.
And here's the other team that we expect to see a lot from as well. The Eagles saved about $13 million by restructuring cornerback Darius Slay. He saved them about $9 million. They also saved a couple more million, about $4 million, on a Jason Kelce restructure, their center.
Which surprised everyone. I actually saw a cool retweet of it was a fan that had just put out a tweet, of an Eagles fan, and it said, hey, seeing that Kelce has restructured and signed, says that the Eagles aren't as dysfunctional as all these reports over the last 2 months have made it seem. Like, hey, these guys won't be back. Hey, the locker room is lost. Hey, everyone hated this guy. It's the GM. It's the coach. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's Carson. No. And so then what was interesting, Brandon Graham liked that tweet. So it was like a fan tweeted this, and then Brandon Graham, who was one of the guys who could potentially be cut, or a guy who, was part of the dysfunction, wasn't expected back from that Super Bowl run, one of the key players from the Super Bowl run, is like, hey, it's not as bad as people think. And so I think that we're not going to see Ertz back, but actually Ian Rappaport has a tweet literally within the last hour. Michael Silver does, excuse me. Multiple teams have called on the Eagles possibly trading for 3-time Pro Bowler Zach Ertz. A deal could happen in the next few days, according to two sources familiar. So he's the one guy who they're not going to get back, but he'll clear a lot of cap.
Yeah, and we already talked about Alshon Jeffrey in a previous episode. He'll be gone as well. There are more moves for them to make. They are bringing back a lot of their peripheral pieces. Like they brought like Boston Scott, and they re-signed a couple of other special teams and backup depth defensive players. So they're trying to continue being a competitive team, especially in the worst division in the NFL. So.
Yeah, I think that, Dallas is going to be good with Dak back.
Dallas will be good with Dak, but their defense is still pretty up in the air. So
Giants' defense is fire.
But their offense is questionable, especially with Saquon coming back injured. It's just a division that's up for grabs.
Yeah.
So, all right, the next thing, we talked about the Raiders last week, and
shout out to Rotor 218.
The Raiders made a couple of moves. One we expected in the release of Richie Incognito, who has said he still wishes to play in the NFL, even if that means re-signing for the Raiders at a cheaper rate. And then a guy that I didn't think they would move on from, Gabe Jackson, who has been a pretty high-level starter in the NFL for a good amount of time. I was really surprised that they released him, saved $10 million on him. Yeah. In total, that was about $15 million that they saved, so it makes sense. But now there's also a lot of rumors that they're trying to trade their tackle Trent Brown as well, which doesn't really make sense.
All those things combined, it's like you're just gonna get rid of all your offensive linemen.
And
what are you trying to accomplish with this?
It doesn't make sense to just directly nuke an entire position of your team.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do a rebuild of sorts, you expect them to get rid of some veterans and move on from some guys that they've overpaid in free agency the last couple of years, or like a Kyle Van Noy move, like the Dolphins are like, not worth it, we'll move on. Like this isn't the type of thing that you go and just go, 5 new starting offensive linemen sound good to me. Like you can't just do that.
It doesn't help if it doesn't really help the team at all. Like, let's just be honest. Because guess what? Now their next draft picks and their next free agency moves will be offensive linemen.
And they're a team that, yes, it's all to get under the cap, right? You have to get under the cap, but I don't know.
No one was looking at the Raiders and being like, "Oh, their offensive line is their biggest problem."
Exactly.
And so it's like if you're not being like, "Oh, this is like for the Titans example, it's clear we need pass rush help and wide receivers. That's like the biggest 2 things the Titans need. And it's a clear thing to attack. For the Raiders to just ignore their already glaring needs and
Defense.
go create a new need
on one of their biggest strengths.
It's just weird to me. But hey,
Yeah.
we'll see what the NFL Network guru Mike Mayock can do. He's a pro when it comes to the scouting world, so we'll see.
Yeah. So other moves that have happened, some restructures as well for the Lions. They restructured Jamie Collins and saved $6 million. They also released Desmond Trufant and saved $6 million.
That
and
was
then they
surprising
signed.
to me.
It wasn't to me. He played pretty poorly last year.
I know,
and he was supposed to mentor Jeff Okudah, and it seemed like Jeff Okudah actually struggled more when Desmond Trufant was on the field compared to when.
It was just surprising to me because it wasn't the cap hit that they needed to make.
Yeah, I get it. They are still over the cap, so they do need to make moves.
They're over the cap because of Goff and Stafford.
Yeah, exactly. And then they went and signed Tyrell Williams to a 1 year, $6 million deal.
They literally took the savings directly from Jamie Collins and got a wide receiver that replaces Marvin Jones, who was pretty good before that shoulder injury. We didn't see him all last year. He's forgotten about.
Now it's a question of, okay, is this we want to sign Tyrell to be one of our guys to go along with the Marvin Jones re-signing, or is it we are about to franchise tag Kenny Golladay and him and Tyrell Williams can create our wide receiver core? So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, Kenny's one of those guys that seems like he wants to be there in the or the Lions, excuse me. They want him to be their number one guy. They view him as the number one guy. He's
true number one wide receiver.
Yeah, and I don't know if he is like a true number one. I don't know if he deserves number one money, but they're going to have to pay him number one money to keep him.
Exactly.
Okay, so the Bills, they made some moves as well. They extended Micah Hyde. And
it was smart. He only had 1 year. He only had 1 year left. Everybody was thinking it was going to be the end of him as their starting safety. He's kind of, towards the wrong side of 30 there. And instead, they're going to get him for a very cheap market price for a good veteran. So even if they do decide in the next 3 years to move on from him, they don't have to release him. They can keep him on the team as a great third safety, a good nickel dime back, some sort of tight end coverage player. And if it's a rookie that they bring in the future or another top free agent, they have a good that's a really good smart team
he's
decision.
One of those guys that makes one play a game that sticks out, like he'll cause a fumble or he's just there at the right time to make a big play. And so it's like he's a leader, and as a team that has momentum like this, anytime you can bring back guys that work well with the guys you have, and especially for a team-friendly deal, it just continues to solidify the Bills as a threat. Yeah. Even in terms of their player mentalities, we have something good. Let's not take huge contracts. Let's not hunt it. Let's re-sign for cheaper and really build this thing and go for a Super Bowl. So I see it.
For sure. And they did another move in a similar fashion. They re-signed their free agent acquisition last year, Andre Smith, linebacker. Interesting here, they paid him about $1.5 million a year. I think most Bills fans would have been more excited about them putting all $1.5 million of that a year towards a contract for Matt Milano, because he looks like a potential star linebacker, whereas an Andre Smith is just a veteran guy that can play starting level NFL plays. So I don't know. That's one of those where it's like, yeah, it's fine. The Micah Hyde one's smart. The Andre Smith one's kind of just like, yeah, that's fine. So the next team that made some moves, the Texans, they took David Johnson's contract and basically cut it in half. David Johnson agreed to a pay cut rather than a release. That's going to basically solidify him as a starting running back in the NFL next year. So as far as you fantasy football fans out there, congratulations.
And no Duke now.
And Duke Johnson was released as well. We talked about that last week.
Look to the Texans to address the running back position via the draft.
Yep.
Higher rather than lower in the draft.
Yeah, they'll be one of those teams where David Johnson will be a starting running back for the first 8 weeks probably, or until the bye week, and then look for some sort of rookie to take over as like a 60-40 percentage, and David Johnson plays all receiving downs, which David Johnson might like more.
Yeah.
He's a good blocker in the pass blocking game, and he's really good from
how good
pass
he
catching
was,
standpoint.
Man, what was that, 2016, 2017?
Second year under Bruce Arians. His second year under Bruce Arians was incredible.
He was so good.
Honestly, it was at the point where you might have considered David Johnson as one of the better receivers in the NFL. Like the way he would catch passes and down the field, you were just like, wait, that was a 30 number on offense. That's a running back.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. But
it was great.
Anyway, the the Dolphins released Kyle Van Noy. I saw that they said they released him, but then he's not quite released yet. They're still trying to off his contract via trade to a team.
This is one of those where we know it's happening.
Yeah, we know it's happening, and it's like if you're a team, you're like, why would I I mean, you want guaranteed to get.
Yeah.
But you have to take his contract and then hopefully just be able to renegotiate a new contract upon trade.
So, yeah, I think one of the reasons why the Dolphins are doing it this way is because his contract is very team-friendly. The reason they're able to cut him 1 year in is because all of those guarantees are injury guarantees. They're not guarantees from a release. They're not guarantees from a trade. So basically what the Dolphins are doing is saying, we're going to release this guy, and then some contender is going to sign him for a lower veteran deal, or a team that's maybe in the middle of the pack is going to pay him a little too much money, or somewhere just below his current contract. What they're basically trying to offer is, hey, one of you teams with a lot of money that's not going to compete this year, we all know it, trade for Kyle Van Noy for a 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, whatever we can take.
Guarantee that he doesn't hit free agency and have
you will have a pass rusher who can get you 6 to 8 sacks this year. You will have a guy that can start for you the entire season and has been fairly healthy over his career and is still sort of young. And hey, what if he pops off and has another great year?
What if he's worth what we signed him to be?
Yeah, and that's not even on a very expensive contract. So, and if he's not free to release him, it'll cost you nothing. That's a great point for them to make, but their hand has been shown. And if Kyle Van Noy is a money chaser, then he can go to a Jacksonville and get paid a ton of money to be their starting edge rusher, So
yeah, it's funny, as a Titans fan, the community, anytime any edge rusher becomes available, every Titans fan's like, oh, how do we get this?
What's that?
What do we do? Oh, Kyle Van Noy. Oh, Kyle Van Noy played for the Patriots. That's where Vrabel played. They are their best friends. What? You're not going to sign him? Like JJ Watt, they're like, oh, it's his D coordinator. He loves him. Clowney loves. And there's always the 7 degrees of Mike Vrabel. Everyone's connected.
It's funny. So another move that was made for a release, Kyle Rudolph was released by the Vikings, saved them, $5 million there. A lot of talk about him going to the Patriots due to about 2 years ago when he was hitting free agency the last time. It was expected he might have signed with the Patriots and been the new Rob Gronkowski. That was the Rob Gronkowski retirement year. So people are expecting him to sign with the Patriots, but who knows? He could easily go and sign somewhere else.
What do you think is the perfect landing spot for him? Because I don't think it's New England.
I don't.
Dude, this guy wants to go for a ring.
Yeah, I don't think it's New England at all. I don't know. I think a better team might be. Let's see. Who's a good team that could use a nice tight end?
I could tell you who it is right now.
Yeah, go ahead. The Titans?
I mean, first of all, yes, it is the Titans. But I'll tell you why. I mean, Jonnu Smith is a free agent for us, but also we have Mecole Pruitt, who's an unrestricted free agent. We haven't re-signed Ferkser, who's going to be a restricted free agent. And then other than that, we have 3 undrafted guys. So we literally have no tight ends, essentially, under contract. So
let's see. So I'm looking at the list of teams here. A Seahawks would be a good team.
Yeah, that's all. Hey, but that's
Cowboys.
That's the same thing as Jimmy Graham going to the Seahawks. It works really well, and then it's.
Yeah, there aren't that many out there. Cardinals is another one.
Cardinals would be sick.
Yeah.
Cardinals would be hella dope. I'd be so down for him to go there.
Yeah, those are just some. I'm looking at it quickly. I mean, yeah, but I feel like they found their guy last year.
Yeah,
Robert Tonyan.
I know, but it'd be kind of sad for the Vikings fans, I'm sure, to see him.
Yeah, for sure. I get you. All right.
But the Rams would be sick.
Another thing, but they have Higbee, and they're already paying him so much, and they have no cap room, so I don't see that.
I'm just thinking.
I got you.
What's not plausible?
Yeah. So the Jets released Henry Anderson. Henry Anderson was a guy that kind of blew up 1 year after he was released from the Colts by the Jets. For the Jets, he had a 7-sack season and then was paid a lot of money and hasn't really done anything since. He has 1 sack in 2 years since then, so he was released.
More than Clowney, though.
Yeah, Washington football team released Alex Smith. Comeback player of the year was due $15 million, so they cut ties there and saved a bunch of money. Also, he wasn't going to start another game for them, and it was very evident nobody was going to trade for him. So it makes sense. Let him be free in free agency, and he'll probably be like the Bears' starting quarterback next year. The Giants released David Mayo and Golden Tate, which we said they were going to do, freeing up about $8 million. The Titans signed some dude that Gavin put in the show run here that I have never... No, I'm just kidding. Kari Blasingame.
Do you know who he is?
No idea.
Put some respect on his name.
Is that a fullback?
That's our fullback, dog.
Yeah, okay. I was like, it sounds familiar, but I don't know.
That's an important re-signing. He's the guy that paves the way for King Henry to get 2K. I'm just saying, that's a under the radar.
Yeah, that's fair.
700,000.
Hey, fullbacks need some love, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, and I was
the next thing. Speaking of fullbacks.
Yeah, but I wanted to touch on this a little bit. The Titans also signed a 1-year deal with Breon Borders, who I was sad they had released last year or 2 weeks ago. So just an update for everyone. It was 1 year, $920K.
Cool.
Then
Anthony Sherman retired.
Yeah, and man, he was so awesome. I actually met Sherm quite a few times when I was in KC, and that guy is a good dude. And so he's loved by that community. I don't see him playing again. Yeah, he retired. But
if you're gonna retire from a team that's in the middle of back to back Super Bowls, basically, come on.
He had a lot of feet injuries. Foot injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had like a lot of ligament damage in his feet, and I remember being there and him just he's struggling.
Yeah. Another guy that retired, Thomas Davis, was released from the Washington football team, re-signed to Carolina, and retired. He is also a very, very historical injury guy. I think he tore 7 ACLs in his career, but the dude always came back strong.
Yeah, and Greg Olsen did the same thing too. Another 1-day contract and retired with the Panthers. Good to see him go back there and finish it up the right way.
I didn't like that he came back. I wish it just ended.
Yeah.
I didn't like that Jason Witten came back because I'm pretty sure he's about to end his career too. And it's just these guys should have just ended it on the one and dones and not been backup tight ends for teams that had a shot.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's jump into the franchise tag. Keep it moving. The deadline is Tuesday. How many players have been tagged already?
2. We have 2 tags already. One we kind of alluded to earlier in our podcasts was Justin Simmons, the safety for the Broncos. He's been playing at a really high level. He's a pretty young player, kind of came out of nowhere for them. So it's no surprise that they have tagged him again. That is actually, I think his contract is $13.6 million, which might make him the highest paid safety in the NFL. I can't remember if that beats out Budda Baker's contract or not. But expect that to be broken this year by one of the other free agent safeties that's going to be hitting the market. But yeah, cool for him. I mean, it seems like they want to get an extension done. So this is one of those we're going to tag him because we don't want to have him talking to anybody. And if we could possibly sign him to an extension, we will. But if not, we're happy to watch him play on the franchise tag and then go at it again next year.
All right, so the franchise tag for Simmons, 13.7 mil. Budda Baker's average for his year is 14.75.
Oh, okay. So not quite there.
Not quite there, but close.
Yeah. The reason I was curious, because normally you take the top 5 of every position and you average that out, or top 5 players at that position and you average it out. But for Simmons, this is going to be his second year in a row on the tag, so there's an increase to his pay. So I was curious if that was going to push him past.
There's a jump. It goes Devin McCourty at 11.5, then Simmons 13.7. And then all the players, there's 5 players above them. The 5 highest are all $14 million average a year, up to 14.75.
Yeah. Okay.
That's Budda Baker, Eddie Jackson, Kevin Byard, Tyrann Mathieu, and Landon Collins.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Just some context.
Yeah. So the Panthers franchise tagged their right tackle Taylor Moton. He played at an incredible level. If you're into the PFF grades, he was one of the highest rated tackles in the NFL last year. And it was kind of one of those deals where it came out of nowhere and nobody expected it.
It wasn't a tag because we don't think we can re-sign him. It was a good faith tag. It
Yeah.
was like, hey, let's tag you, and hey, we're going to work on something right away. We just want to let you know you're a priority for us.
Yeah.
And we're dedicated to making this happen now because they have money to do it. So it's like, why?
Yeah, and they were a team that last year moved on from their right tackle, Darrell Williams, who's the Buffalo Bills starting tackle, who might also get tagged. It's possible. They don't really need to, I think, but they moved on from Darrell Williams, and then we're just like, all right, Taylor Moton, you were pretty good, so we're happy to move on from Williams, and we'll see how you do this year. And here he is now getting franchise tagged because he was one of the best tackles in the game last year, and that was without Christian McCaffrey running behind him. So good for them. There are some players that we expect to be tagged, mostly because of either media reports or, there's no way the team will let this guy walk away without at least tagging and trying to trade them. So you want to talk about the main one?
I mean, it's Dak Prescott. I mean, the truth is that they're not going to reach a deal with him. There's no chance they'll end up reaching a deal with him.
You think there's no chance? Really?
This year? No. I think he betted on himself twice already. He's going to keep betting on himself every time. I think he feels like he has a lot to prove this year anyway. And since he's coming off an injury, he might feel like the Cowboys might try to give him less than he deserves. So he might just come back this year and try to crush it and just earn it again. And
I almost feel the exact opposite.
They can't tag him again.
Yeah, well, I almost feel the exact opposite. I almost feel like because of the injury, and how good he played before it, including the last couple of years, I almost feel like he has all of the leverage here. And
Really?
the team, I mean, I think the team knows what they are without him, which is not good. Like, we couldn't even make it into the playoffs with 6 wins. Like, we couldn't get 6 wins. I don't think they can accomplish being a playoff contender without him, and I think he has all of the leverage there. And his injury was not you've tore your ACL every single year. His injury was, I got tackled from behind, my ankle got rolled up on, and I had a really, really bad injury. Like, this is a freak accident.
Which is why I think it's easy to take the franchise guaranteed money and earn the big contract this following year wherever he wants. If it's not in Dallas, he has the freedom to go someplace else because they can't tag him 3 years in a row.
With advances in modern science, it's not crazy to think that Dak Prescott can't return to a high level in the NFL.
With all due respect, that ain't worth a valuation of a dolphin and a whale getting it on.
Yeah, good old Talladega Nights reference, sad too. And the other guy that we expect to get tagged this season is Marcus May, the safety for the Jets. And that's because his agent basically said, contract talks ain't going very well, so expect him to get tagged. Which is like, oh my gosh,
it's
the content.
But like we just said about like a good faith tag for the Panthers, this will be a please don't leave us tag.
You're our star.
Yeah, this will be a please don't leave us tag. I think safety is going to be one of the most common positions we see in terms of tags in the next few years because it's not a super expensive position yet. But it's starting to get closer and closer to becoming cornerback level, and
it's
I
like
think
guards and right tackles.
Yeah, there's phases of the franchise tag game where teams know where I can franchise this position and it'll save us quite a bit of money. And I think safety is in that spot right now, but they know eventually it's gonna be expensive. So we expect May to be a tag, and then there's a bunch of other ones. I mean, the wide receivers are always guys that end up being tagged.
Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson.
All three likely going to get it, but some of those will be please don't leave us tag for Allen Robinson. This is a good faith tag for Chris Godwin. They'll get to an extension.
Good faith for Kenny Golladay too.
And good faith for Kenny Golladay as well. So I think
And then you have Hunter Henry.
Can we make this a thing? Can we make this a thing? A please don't leave me tag and a good faith tag instead of a franchise tag. I think that's a new thing. Book it.
Yeah.
Book it.
Bop.
Let's go.
Hunter Henry's in a similar situation. He was tagged last year, so his tag would increase this year, and it would be the last year they could tag him. He's already said he's open to free agency. He's open to returning.
That team wants him to stay, man. And when you have a young guy like Herbert who had chemistry with him, it's like, dude, no point in letting that go. You have such good wide receivers, like.
It's one of those exact situations with like a good faith tag. We want you back. We want to re-sign you. We hope that we can offer you everything you want in an NFL franchise.
Man, just stay here. We have potential to be a team that people like, and can go far. Like, why not stick around?
And then Aaron Jones was another one that I think is interesting because the Packers came out and openly talked about it. they said this is a guy that maybe we do have to tag him, but I don't know why you would, with having AJ Dillon and the ability to maybe bring back on an incredibly cheaper contract a guy like Jamal Williams. So
yeah, they love Jamal too.
yeah,
And you can draft. Yeah, I mean the Packers have never had an issue with finding the next running back. If there's one thing that they have done well, it is constantly move on, keep a couple veteran guys around to be that third down back for Aaron to throw the ball to out of the backfield. Reliable guys that are also kick returners. I mean, think about Ty Montgomery. How they make a lot out of a little when it comes to
who just re-signed with the Saints.
Yeah, they use that position as like a flex position. Anyway, but I don't think they'll need to tag Aaron Jones. Yannick for the Ravens. He's interesting. Yeah, Yakwe. I think that's an interesting one. I don't think they will.
So a lot of the talks are that the reason they would tag Yannick Ngakoue over like Matt Judon is because Judon was tagged by the Ravens this last year, so his would be a 19 million tag, whereas Ngakoue's would be 16 million. So they could basically save 3 million.
But which player do you think they like more?
I think Ngakoue's numbers are better. Judon, I think Judon gets blown up more than he probably actually performs to, but that might be a Terrell Suggs career benefit, where he had Suggs rushing across from him for a couple of years. That boosted his stats and his credentials. Yeah, he gets a lot of quarterback pressure, so I'll give him that. But I don't know.
Another player that is potentially going to get the tag that I hope doesn't get the tag, the please don't leave me tag, is Carl Lawson. The Titans are all in on Lawson.
Carl Lawson, edge rusher for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes,
he will be the guy that's who we're going to try to sign.
This was his first year as an NFL starter after a career of being a situational pass rusher. So it was interesting. His pressures and sacks all kind of fluctuated over the last couple of years, but he actually played 500 snaps this year for the first time in his career, and he still did pretty well. So he's one of those guys.
It was like week 8 he wasn't doing anything, and then like week 8 to week 17 he was like the best pass rusher in the NFL's per stat. And that scares me, but it's like, okay, well, maybe a tag if you're the Bengals, another tag or tagging him might be the way to find out if that wasn't just a 1-year hit, and then maybe they can work on an extension for him. So it makes sense. And then
interesting. He's one of those that I think next year could be that's a really great signing. They got him, and he is performing very well. Like, they signed him for $14 million a year, and he's playing to that level. He's not at the top of the pass rush payers, but he's still doing pretty well. Or it's, wow, what a bum that signing was. Like, could be horrible.
Could be like an Olivier Vernon type signing, a big contract, and you're just like
Vernon for the Giants signing.
That's what I'm referring to. Yeah, I'm like,
because he did good for Cleveland.
Huge money to go to the Giants, and then it was just like, all right, bye.
Yeah. All right. Any other ones? Giants, the Dalvin Tomlinson as well, because they are about to lose both Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson, 2 interior defensive linemen. We talked about that in a couple podcasts ago, but he's probably the most likely of the two to be franchised.
Yeah, they tried to trade Leonard a couple times this last year.
Well, they traded for him the year before, so they were just trying to capitalize because they knew they couldn't tag him again. Well, they could, but it would cost way too much.
So what's the difference, for those that don't know, between a restricted free agent and an unrestricted free agent? I know a lot of free agents to re-sign lists for teams, and there will be a name on there, but they're not truly they can go sign everywhere right away. You're at immediate danger of them leaving your team, because restricted free agency is different, right?
Yes, so restricted free agency usually refers to a player that's been in the NFL for, it's usually like 3 or 4 years. These are the guys that are your 3rd round draft picks or your 5th round draft picks, or even guys that have been in the NFL on a couple of teams but are still in the first few years of their NFL career, and their contracts are expiring, but they are considered restricted free agents, meaning the team that has their contract the previous year has a restricted, say on where they can go. Basically, the way that it works is a team can put a round-based tender on a player. So if a guy was drafted in, say, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever rounds, they could put a corresponding round, like a third round tender on a player, and that is given a predetermined amount of money based off of what rookie contracts are for players drafted in that round, and the team signs them for that much for a 1-year deal. That's how that works. So if another team wanted to have a shot at drafting or at signing one of those guys, they have to forfeit a draft pick equal to the round of the tender that is placed on that player. So if you put a third round tag on Gus Edwards, who is a restricted free agent this year, and say the Miami Dolphins really want Gus Edwards to be their starting running back, they match the tender. That means the Dolphins are willing to give up a third round draft pick to sign Gus Edwards for like $2 million a year, and the Ravens would receive the Dolphins' third round draft pick the following year. That's usually.
It's interesting. There's not a lot of those signings in terms of teams poaching guys. Draft picks are in high regard.
Yeah, it's basically, are you willing to trade a very, very important pick for a player who you'll also have to re-sign? Because they're on a 1-year deal, and you don't benefit a lot from it. Not a lot of restricted free agents get signed by other teams. It happens every once in a while. It's more likely that a team has the chance of signing a restricted free agent, but denies that chance. They do not want to re-sign the player for that much money. It's more likely a situation where teams will tender somebody and then hope to work out a deal for 3 to 5 years where they can get them for the rate they want them at. So, so just to give other examples, I talked about Gus Edwards, but this last week, Denver tendered Phillip Lindsay, A.J. Johnson, and Tim Patrick, their running back, linebacker, and wide receiver that played a lot of games for them. A.J. Johnson was kind of a breakout performer for them on defense, and Phillip Lindsay, if you haven't heard, is like the Denver, Colorado born, went to Colorado. Everybody loved him as an undrafted free agent, and then he blew up, and then they signed Melvin Gordon instead. So it's one of those situations where they don't want to lose him as their backup, but they also,
the running back position is so interesting for the Broncos with Phillip Lindsay, Royce, and Melvin. It's just weird, but anyway.
Yeah. They just tendered all of those guys, and the players it's basically like a franchise tag. The players don't get to play somewhere else unless a team is willing to offer draft picks for them. So it's a situation similar to a franchise tag, but not exactly the same. The players are still accessible to other teams. It's just, are you willing to forfeit up the draft pick for them? Other guys are San Francisco just tendered Ross Dwelly, their tight end, as a backup option, and then their safety Marcel Harris. So there are a bunch of these tenders that go out every single year. There's also another thing called exclusive rights free agents, and those guys are even more off limits to any team. Basically, whoever owns the exclusive rights free agent's contract, they have the first say. If they decide they want to re-sign a player, the player can't go anywhere, and they just have to agree to it. And it's really crappy for a player who's just performed way above their pay grade, because they're going to get a really low contract and then just have to keep waiting until free agency happens again for them. So
all right, well, with that, we're going to jump into our divisional preview now. We're going to hit the AFC North first. It was a really interesting year for the AFC North. I mean, you had Pittsburgh jumping off to an 11-0 start and then really falling apart. And then, meanwhile, you had strong finishes by Baltimore and Cleveland, both teams with probably the best football game of the year was honestly that Monday night Ravens-Browns game. What a wild game that was. And then Cincinnati played a couple really nice games, and they lost Joe Burrow to injury. But as a division, this division is like, you're seeing the real changing of the guard now. Pittsburgh is in a really tough position. They know they probably have 2 more years with this current set of vets. You have guys like Pouncey retiring already. You have guys leaving, and then Baltimore's only getting stronger. Momentum. Cleveland stronger, more momentum, and Cincinnati is finally got their rebuild. They think they have their guy if he can stay healthy the whole 16 game or 17 games potentially.
Yeah.
And they have cap room. This division has cap room, which
surprisingly,
which isn't when you have this many good players and you are this competitive in terms of divisional round playoffs, AFC championship, potentially AFC championship level team. It's surprising you can be like, oh yeah, the Browns have $21 million in cap room. The Ravens have $18 million. Meanwhile, the Saints and the Eagles and the Lions and
just compare it to the other division we're going to be talking about. all the teams in the AFC North are under the cap. All the teams in the NFC North are over the cap.
Yeah,
So it's just so
very
crazy.
weird. Yeah, and also like you're saying, I mean, they're over the Steelers are under the cap because of Big Ben
And
right
Pouncey's
now.
retirement.
And Pouncey's retirement. Yeah,
a bunch of the restructures we talked about earlier.
Yeah, but I think it just says a lot about the division and how good it is for them to be able to have money and still be this competitive. All right, so the Ravens, they have 18 million cap room. They got some big free agents and Matt Judon, your boy Yannick, Willie Snead, Derek Wolfe, Matt Skura, Tyus Bowser, and DJ Fluker. Fluker was a guy that was on the move early in his career. He looked better last year.
And I think I put his name in here specifically because of the whole Orlando Brown Jr. trade stuff.
Yeah, he's important if they trade Orlando.
If they trade Orlando Brown Jr. and get some draft picks, I think this is a guy that could probably be a starting right tackle for a year for them. He's better as a guard now, but I think he could probably fill in as the tackle for them, and they could probably re-sign him for pretty close to a vet minimum.
Yeah, and they have some pretty good. They have some potential cap casualties that make sense for them. Man, they already released RG3, Mark Ingram, and Tramon Williams, so they're kind of cleaning those vets out. So the next ones are Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell.
It's one or the other situation for me. I think you have room here to get rid of one and then really make a run at your edge rushers because they're losing all three of their top edge rushers right now. Yeah. So I feel like it's probably going to be one of those guys that gets moved on from, and it's so crazy to think that you could pick between them because Brandon Williams is a difference maker, but Calais Campbell has been that guy in the NFL for the last 10 years.
No matter where he is, what he's doing. One of my good friends, Corey, he that I work with, he worked at the American Conference as a videographer back in the day, and he met Calais Campbell at an event, and he just says Calais Campbell is the biggest human in the world. He's just like there is just no one built like this guy. Yeah. Like in terms of just how thick and how tall he is, he just is a wall.
Yeah, I feel like they probably do. If they feel the need to do that, I think it's harder to move on from a guy like Calais Campbell. They don't even need to necessarily if they really view this team as not needing a number one wide receiver, which they've kind of pointed towards saying, we don't need a true number one. We're not going to go after Allen Robinson. So if they do bring back one edge rusher,
stay away from Corey Davis though, please.
If they do bring back one edge rusher on this current salary cap, it could be done. The only thing is, are they going to be extending Lamar Jackson soon? Because this is the time where all of the quarterbacks that were drafted at that same time are looking to be extended before they have to run into the potential of touching the free agent market, and having to tag them like they had to do with Dak in Dallas.
Could you imagine 3 tags in a row on Lamar? Oof.
I mean,
but anyway, so yeah, I think they're gonna make a big run at that. I think they're gonna make a big run at going for that extension this year. He is marketable. He is exciting. He is someone that he was the MVP, man. Like
you can build a team around his play style that is very unique in the NFL.
What's unique is that how John Harbaugh has been able to switch like over the last 10 years how his team has played football depending on who he has on either side of the ball. Without a doubt, to me, one of the best coaches in the NFL, the way he's able to mold his team to be successful with the talent.
Players coach, too.
Just very good. But
so we talked about, their free agents. I think they probably bring back one of the guys in Yannick Ngakoue or Matt Judon. I don't see how they could really imagine themselves without one of those two. And then I'd expect them to try and bring in Tyus Bowser again, too, as kind of like the, all right, now you're up, type of deal. And then they already re-signed a bunch of guys like Nick Boyle and a couple other depth pieces. So I think this is probably, they're going to be looking for veteran players to come in on lower contracts for 1 year.
And it's easy to get veteran players when you're like, hey, listen, we got a winning formula here. And so come to us and you might for sure go to the playoffs.
So look for them to pick up an edge rusher, some sort of right tackle if they don't go with trading Orlando Brown Jr. or whatever it might be. And then we talked about wide receiver. They do need somebody. It's just maybe it isn't an Allen Robinson.
There's a lot of wide receivers though.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals are coming in with $41 million under the cap right now, which is really good for them because they are a young team that has a lot of room to work.
And that's why I was saying earlier with the Lawson thing, they don't even have to franchise tag him. They could just go ahead and sign him.
Yeah. They
So
can just pay him big bucks and be here forever.
yeah, it's their choice if they think he's that dude. So it'll be interesting to come Tuesday if they decide to spend some of that 41 mil on him.
Yeah, so we talked about Carl Lawson. They also have AJ Green. I feel like we've gone over the situation the last 3 years now.
And I don't know what his mentality is. Like, if you're AJ Green, you're like, I've been hurt so much, haven't been playing. I've seen this team change the guard a few times. It's just like,
and they don't need him anymore.
They don't need him, and it's not even like he's so. When he was killing it, he was a very active, open to the media type player. Yeah. And just the last few years, as he's been hurt, it doesn't even seem like he's a leader of the team. I don't see him tweeting about the Bengals. I don't see him pumping his guys up. I don't see any of that stuff. So it's like feels like he's out the door. And I think the Bengals are like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Like we appreciate what you've done for us, but you're gone.
It'll be interesting what happens there. They are losing both William Jackson and Mackenzie Alexander, two of their starting corners, so they'll definitely look to re-sign one of those, especially if they decide to, not address this position in free agency with all that money. So I think they probably re-sign Lawson. They probably get one of those two corners back, and I don't think they go for AJ Green just because they have some good young wide receivers. They do have some cap casualties.
I bet you Lawson hits the market.
Okay. Well, I mean, I
don't know
for your
if the
sake, I
Titans will
hope
get him. I don't know if we will, but I'm saying I think he's going to hit the market just because they traded Dunlap, and if you trade Dunlap, you got to have a plan. Yeah. So I think they're either gonna sign him big, or they're gonna let him go and they're gonna draft people because they don't think he's that guy.
Yeah. So some cap casualties. I don't see them moving on from Geno Atkins, but he has a big.
Dude, he's been so badass. So
yeah, he's got a high contract or a high valued contract, so that is the one guy they can move on from. They also have Bobby Hart, Gio Bernard, and C.J. Uzomah on their offense, which are possibilities. Veteran guys making a good amount of money that maybe could be replaceable, especially in a year where everybody should be a little less expensive.
Yes, C.J.'s over $5 million cap savings. Gio Bernard's over $4 million. Bobby Hart's about $6 million. Gino's about $10 million. And then even Trey Waynes is a guy that I know they talked about because he didn't play super well. But when you have that many corners that are free agents, it's like, why would you let him go with that much money?
Yeah. So positions that they definitely need to look at. They need to probably look at some offensive line help for Joe Burrow. And then linebacker has been a problem for them since basically what's the name of the guy that would always cause huge hits and then get fined? Vontaze Burfict. Since Vontaze Burfict left the NFL, that's been a position of question for them. And then we mentioned all of the corners that are going to be leaving and Trey Waynes' performance. And then Carl Lawson's their only edge rusher. So those are positions they need to address, whether it be re-signing their own guys or going and paying some free agents.
I without question, I see them being the biggest spenders in the offensive line market this year. I think this is it's going to be a big deal for them to keep Joe healthy. I mean, they saw just how good he was going to be and how much momentum and how fun he was to watch just early. And if he gets hurt next year, it's like it throws their whole game plan into the trash. So I think they have to protect him. So I think they'll spend a lot of money there rather than other places. They'll get to those through the draft as well.
Yeah, I think that's the best route for them is probably pay one vet. Find a good rook.
They have pick number 5, so they can do some stuff with it.
Yeah. All right. The Cleveland Browns are up next. They have $21 million under the cap, which is a good amount of room for a team that probably has 2 or 3 starters to replace at least. They're going to be looking to replace Olivier Vernon, who just tore his Achilles at the very end of the season, which is unfortunate for him. They also are going to be losing free agents Larry Ogunjobi, Andrew Sendejo, Carl Joseph, Terrence Mitchell, Kevin Johnson, and Malcolm Smith on their defense. I had to make sure I got all of the guys. Those are all guys that started at least a significant amount for them on the team last year.
Hey, don't forget Malcolm Smith is a Super Bowl MVP.
I mean, yeah, that's fair, right? But he's also, I think,
that's
he's 32.
A fun fact. That's a fun fact. If you were going to trivia question someone and you're going to be like,
you're giving away your games, my friend.
Name the last defensive Super Bowl MVP. The people would be like, Von Miller. And you'd be like, yeah. And then what about before that?
So then their other free agent is Rashard Higgins, who is a probably going to be hitting the market. I don't see them re-signing him. I think they'll probably go with like a restricted guy like Kadarius Hodge instead as being that potential third, fourth wide receiver. I do think that they look to re-sign one of their safeties, Sendejo or Joseph, and then it wouldn't make sense for them not to go after Ogunjobi, who I think has been really good on the interior for them. Kind of seems to bring a nasty presence to the game. I know people think of him like fighting against the Steelers and stuff like that, but he also does make a lot of good plays, especially in the run game. So they have some potential cap casualties in Sheldon Richardson, who has been underperforming for them on the interior of the defensive line. And then people have been talking a lot about, are they going to trade OBJ? Are they going to release Jarvis Landry? There's a lot of really kind of questionable decisions that people think the Browns should make, but it doesn't make sense to me.
They don't need to do a ton. They just need to win more football games. I think they just need to draft and build the right way. They did Moneyball. Like, you can tell that all the money stuff worked. They have $21 million in cap, and they look like they're building like a Madden roster, but they still are under the cap.
It's great. It's one of those things where I'm almost like, why would you do all of these crazy moves? Re-sign your guys that are good. Pick up one or two vets in the free agency.
Make some good draft picks.
And draft some players.
Yeah.
Draft some dudes, draft some guys that can play, and you'll be fine.
Now, it's smart if the Browns were like, all right, how do you think that people would react to the Browns drafted with the 26th overall pick a wide receiver in the first round?
It'd be oh no, they're moving on from Odell or Jarvis.
And I don't see it that way. I see it as, hey,
preparing yourself for the future.
But yeah, it's a smart thing to do. How do you think teams stay good all the time?
For sure.
Do we think OBJ and Jarvis Landry will both be on the Browns 2 years from now?
Probably not.
But if they use a first-round pick on a wide receiver, that guy will. So they'll be able to back themselves up. So we're going to see them make some smart decisions, hopefully. Or actually not. I don't care.
They do need to find a linebacker and then a guy to start opposite of Myles Garrett. They probably look to re-sign one of their own safeties so that they need to refill that position as well.
But also safety's deep in free agency this year. So
yeah, but it's going to be deep in the paying guys lots of money area though. So I don't know if they want to go that route. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about the fact that they now have $4 million under the cap, which is surprising.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, they have a lot of free agents, though, so that doesn't do them a lot of good with guys like Bud Dupree, Alejandro Villanueva, Avery Williamson, Mike Hilton, Cameron Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, Tyson Alualu, and then both their right tackles, Zach Banner and Matt Filer, both hitting free agency, too. So that's a lot of guys, and every single person I just named on that list played an incredible amount of snaps for the Steelers last year, unless they got hurt, because obviously a lot of them got hurt at some point, which is why their defense fell apart.
They need to be cutting some of these dudes in order to make money to protect Ben, because
it'll be interesting.
Once they started, they're the worst 11-0 team in NFL history.
Yeah, they had a huge, impressive defense that was just destroying everybody up front and playing solid on the back end, and then Minka was making plays all over the field, right? But then all of a sudden, guys just started going down.
What a trade for Minka.
Steal. But yeah, so now it's a question of, are they going to get rid of guys like Joe Hayden, Vince Williams on the defense, and then Mason Rudolph and David DeCastro on the offense? They signed Dwayne Haskins to be their backup, so it'll be interesting what they do with Mason Rudolph, who's due like about $2 million. David DeCastro has a long injury history, but is also their only offensive lineman at this point.
About $9 million saved on the cap for cutting him. Vince Williams is 4 and Hayden is 7. I think Hayden's the most likely guy to get cut.
Yeah, and there were talks that he was going to be cut, and then Hayden said himself, whoa, what are you talking about? That's not true, and the team kind of like backed him up on it. So I think they do need to look to probably make some more moves, keep restructuring. If Hayden's a guy that would restructure, they probably want to retain one of Sutton or Hilton, their cornerbacks, because they both played incredible last year as the starting outside and nickel corners. They do need to retain one of their 3 tackles in Villanueva, Filer, or Banner, because you need to start tackles.
I could see them being a more... one of those teams that trades players for like to get some draft capital, like to free up cap room. Like I could see them trying to trade someone on their defensive side.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Like how do you free up cap room is a good way to go ahead and trade a draft pick.
Yeah.
Or for a draft pick. Like Trading, example, the Titans traded Jarrell Casey for a 6th-round pick and freed up $13 million in cap room, and then signed Clowney for 1 year, $13 million. I think
it'll be interesting what they do.
Do that.
It's just hard because there aren't a lot of guys they have left to trade because they already have. I mean, all of those guys need to be replaced next year that I listed as their free agents, other than maybe Juju because they already have a good amount of wide receivers. Everyone else is a starter. I mean, Tyson Alualu was a rotational defensive lineman for them, but he had his career year at 33. So, I mean, how do you replace that presence, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how they fit it all in there. Yeah, they're going to get it done. You can borrow money from future years. You can move bonuses around. So I'm sure they'll bring back a couple of guys.
Blow it up. This is your last year. This year.
You don't blow it up on the last year with Big Ben though. So
no, I'm saying after this year, go ahead and just blow it up.
Yeah, sure. Why not? All right. That is the AFC North. We will move on to the NFC North now. And the NFC North is one of those divisions where it's been pretty clear over the last, decade who's been running it. Probably longer. I mean, with Favre and Rodgers, the Packers have been very dominant in this division. They were 13-3 last year, the number 1 seed, and the only other team that really made a run here was the Chicago Bears, and that's because the NFC East was to blame for no wild cards. Although Minnesota did actually go 4-2 in the division last year, which was impressive for a team that only had 7 wins to beat 4 times in your own division. So it's a fairly competitive division, but it's one of those where you almost expect the Packers are going to run it back and dominate. The Vikings and Bears are going to fight for some sort of wild card spot, depending on who the Bears quarterback is.
And then the Lions is going to be just a completely new team. The way they look, they feel. And I don't know. I think we're going to have to wait a few weeks to kind of get the jury out on them.
Yeah, so we mentioned that every single team here is over the cap right now.
And that is not good.
Yeah, the Chicago Bears come in at -$7 million.
That is not good.
They have Allen Robinson, Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Gibson, Jermaine Ifedi, and Cordero Patterson as some of key free agents I've listed. I think maybe Patterson's the only one they bring back just because he's the Matt Nagy specialty.
Dude, I saw Patterson liking a bunch of tweets for players or teams, fans messaging him about places he could play.
Yeah, there's and then he sent out a tweet.
Here in Florida,
he sent out a tweet that was wondering why the Bears haven't re-signed me and A-Rob yet. Yeah, he actually said that, so it's kind of crazy. Some cap casualties for them.
Robinson Jimmy gets tabbed.
Maybe. I don't know. I think he might actually hit the free agency market just because of this team situation. I don't know that they necessarily are at that place where they need to keep a number 1 wide receiver because I don't think they're going to compete. I think they need to find a quarterback first. So some potential cap casualties are Jimmy Graham, who's fairly expensive, Bobby Massey, and Charles Leno, both of their tackles. So this could be a situation where if you're looking to blow up a team that is underperforming and barely making it into the playoffs and never getting a good draft pick, this might be a good time to do that in a year where the money is down.
I mean, let's just think of it this way. They have no money, right? And, man, they have Mitch, who's hit. They have Nick Foles as the starting quarterback. His contract's not nice.
No, there's a couple more years on it with some guarantees. So they're gonna have to eat some dead money here next year probably.
I don't know why they traded for him.
Matt Nagy's specialty, man.
I don't know. It's kind of wild. But anyway, so, I mean, an Alex Smith there could be a good fit. An Andy Dalton there could be a decent fit.
Yeah. Cam Newton even. I mean, why not?
Cam Newton's probably the most cost efficient.
Yep. You just watched a Mitch Trubisky team for the last 4 years. Fans wouldn't be mad at a Cam Newton.
They traded up for Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, so they need a quarterback is what we're getting at. I mentioned both of their tackles as potential cap casualties because they're both due a lot of money and they're not very, they're not very good for the amount of money they're being paid as far as, sacks allowed, pressures given up, quarterback hits, things like that. So it's questionable whether or not they can find some better replacements. They're good on the interior of the line, but they do need another linebacker. If Allen Robinson leaves, they probably need another wide receiver. They have some young guys, but you can't replace an Allen Robinson
and
with some young guys.
pick 20. So it's not like they're going to get a star quarterback. They're going to have to trade pick 20 and other stuff to move up and try to get one of these QBs if they really want it. I mean, trading your draft picks saves you money kind of in a way. later.
Yeah, in a weird way. Yeah.
Yeah, in a weird way. So as a team that's hurt on money, it's not terrible.
Yeah, usually
But
you're trading for a player that has a big contract, though, so it's kind of like it depends on the way it's all
yeah,
structured.
yeah. But anyway, so the Lions, speaking of
Yep.
trading for a player that has big money, they traded for Jared Goff, got tons of draft capital in return for Matt
Yep.
Stafford. They did right by Stafford. Stafford asked for a trade. They got rid of him quick.
Yep.
You know,
And to a team where he can compete for a ring
yeah,
right away.
In the same conference.
Yep.
It was a pretty generous thing to do. So good on the Lions for handling their situation correctly. But they're just over the cap by a cool mil. They can get that back easy. Yeah, super easy. They have Marvin Jones, who they will not be bringing back. Signing Tyrell was saying goodbye to Marvin. We appreciate what you've done. You and Stafford were great together, but you're both going out of the door at the same time.
Fair.
Then you have Kenny Golladay, likely to get the franchise tag, like we said. They'll work on a long-term thing for him. They think he's true number one, but he doesn't deserve true number one money, so it's going to be a little weird. But
yeah, and then one of their defensive stalwarts in Deron Harmon for them. I don't think that's a guy you want to move on from in a year where your defensive backfield is looking pretty porous, and that might be the best guy on the team.
Yeah, and another super interesting free agent for them is Matt Prater. I mean, the truth is finding a kicker that you can guarantee to make kicks is tough in the NFL. It's usually like there's 20 teams that have pretty, 24 teams maybe that have pretty consistent kickers, and then 8 teams that seem to can't get it right.
It's just miserable.
It's just miserable. Yeah, I know. So finding a guy like Prater, who's been awesome for them. How many games has Prater won on a 50-yard field goal or sent to OT?
He's great. He's incredible.
He's someone that is a game changer. So I think they'll work on bringing him back. And then they're likely to maybe
lose some pass rushers.
Yeah, they don't. Oh yeah, you mean free agency? Go for that.
Yeah, they have Romeo Okwara and Everson Griffin both hitting free agency this year too. So I think they probably need to go after Kenny Golladay on the tag, re-sign Okwara and Harmon, and then I can't imagine the Lions not having Matt Prater. So I think they'd be remiss to not go out get him back on the team. That city loves him.
Yeah, I mean they don't really. It's weird they don't. It sounds like they don't have a lot to do, but they need everything. They just need to upgrade at every position. Like they have all B level players. They don't have stars at any of the position groups.
They're a team that I think has been miscoached for so long that none of the players have confidence, and I think that's just it's hard.
I think the Lions have been in contention because they have had a great quarterback in Matt Stafford, and it makes you think the Lions as a team are better than they really are. I think we'll all see here this season how bad they will be.
I would like to see them do the Browns.
I don't think they're going to be good.
I would like to see them do the Browns approach and moneyball it on, for a couple of years here.
They have all these so many picks, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have good money in the future once Jared Goff's gone.
They have a top 10 pick now. I think they're a good trade back candidate this year. If they're not in, they're like, okay, well, we have Jared Goff. It's essentially a rental. And unless he performs well, then it was a good idea. But his contract's terrible, so it's like I don't know how they're going to want to keep him. But they could trade back easily, collect more picks, and not draft the quarterback this year if they're not feeling like this is the class for them.
Yeah.
So
and it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm in the favor of full rebuild. It kind of sounds like you might be too.
I am.
So let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. They are at a negative $11 million in the cap space, so
not good.
$11 million over the cap, not good. They have some key free agents as well. Corey Linsley probably is the most important one in my opinion. Aaron Jones is talked about a lot, but they also have a guy that they just drafted, A.J. Dillon, so they already have his replacement kind of on hand. They're also losing Jamal Williams, their other running back. And then they have Kevin King, one of their starting corners. But they have a couple of corners hitting free agency.
Have you ever seen a cornerback in recent memory have as bad of a playoff game as Kevin King had against the Buccaneers?
'Twas rough.
Man, dude. Dude, it was like every play this guy was just getting clapped.
Yeah, he was responsible for the halftime touchdown over the top to Scotty Miller
Evans touchdown.
Mike Evans touchdown at the very beginning on the first drive, and the pass interference. No, and the pass interference as well at the very end. So, yeah, he was the jersey puller. Yeah, so that's rough. He probably won't be re-signed. I expect them to re-sign Williams because I don't know why you wouldn't. He'll be at a discount, and he's a really good performer for them.
He will not leave. He loves that city.
Yeah, and I think that team gets the best out of him too. Lindsley, I think, would just be a mistake to move on from one of the game's best centers, and you've already released Ricky Wagner, so you're just losing offensive linemen with a quarterback that is telling you, "I want to not die, please."
Also, he's like, I don't want to touch any more dudes' butts. I got this guy already right here. I've touched his butt for 10 years. We're good.
Yeah,
and so don't change it. But, I mean, the other thing is, like, you have Jordan Love here. I haven't heard this. No one's talked about this at all. What about the Packers being like, all right, let's just trade Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers is going to be around forever.
For what, though?
But hear me out. Hear me out. The Patriots, they were like, all right, we're going to draft a first-round quarterback because we're going to have to end up getting rid of Brady at some point. And then he just survived. So they just let that guy go.
What would you accept?
A new one.
If you're the Packers, I'll be the Patriots, you be the Packers.
How much money do you get right now if you were to trade Jordan Love?
What do you mean? Money?
Like cap savings.
What's his cap savings? Like $2 million.
Let's see.
Do you need help?
Over the cap. I was on Spot Rack and
his cap savings.
$7 million if they were to trade him.
That's total. That's not this year.
No, that's $7 million this year. $7.3 million.
His cap number this year is $2.8 million. He has no bonuses. That's total cap over his contract. That's not this year. So they would be saving $2 million.
Do it.
No, because so here's the thing. If I'll be the Patriots, you be the Packers, what draft pick would be necessary for you to trade Jordan Love right now? You traded up in the first round. You traded up in the first round last year to get him. Pick 12?
That's what the Patriots are at right now.
15.
Right?
They have 15. I wouldn't give you anything above a third round draft pick for him. 1 year removed, all he's done is sit on the bench in the NFL. He's not a proven
Jimmy
player.
G got a second round pick.
Yeah, and I'm the Patriots. I'm not going to give you anything. You have Aaron Rodgers. You have no pressure.
I don't know. I'm just saying. No. I'm not saying to the Patriots. I'm saying like a team like the Bears could be like, we'll give you a third round pick for.
You can say that with any first round draft pick. Then, I mean, you could say that with Mitch Trubisky.
I'm just saying Jordan Love isn't a position of need for them if Aaron Rodgers is going to be
Jordan Love hasn't done anything in the NFL, so nobody needs to trade for him. Jimmy G at least played some games when Brady was hurt. At least you saw 4 games of Jimmy G playing and being like, oh yeah, it's the same reason Matt Castle got to be a starting quarterback 3 times.
Then let's phrase it this way: the Packers are making a mistake by not letting Jordan Love play.
The Packers made a mistake by drafting Jordan Love. That's the only thing that needs to be said.
He could be the greatest football player of all time. We have no idea.
We'll find out in 5 years when he plays his first NFL game. All right. They already cut a couple of guys to get closer to that cap space with Kirksey, and I mentioned Wagner. Some other guys they can move on from are Dean Lowry. I doubt they move on from Preston Smith with the Smith bros, but we'll see. They do need a linebacker. Like I said, they got rid of Kirksey, who is a little bit of a flop for them. They also released their starting tackle, right tackle, and then we talked about Kevin King, and then their slot corner was absolutely torched this entire year, so look for them to probably try and find some sort of veteran presence. Imagine a Tramon Williams return. They do have Devin Funchess coming back from a opt-out year, which is interesting because usually the Packers don't sign free agents at wide receiver or draft them, so having a guy like Devin Funchess who has some upside potentially here is interesting to see what he can do coming back. They could also just release him and save $3 million, so who knows.
Honey Funchess of Oats, one of the best fantasy football names for my boy Barcott. Shout out Barcott one time.
All right, the last team on our list today is the Minnesota Vikings. They have negative $3 million. They are over the cap still. They have some important free agents on defense, being Anthony Harris, Eric Wilson, and then some other guys, Dakota Dozier and Jaleel Johnson. They re-signed Stephen Weatherly, who was a player for them 2 years ago that recently signed with the Carolina Panthers last year, and they got him for $2.5 million. He signed a $12 million contract the year before, so good addition by them to pick up a guy that really performed well in their defense and comes back on a cheap contract.
Yeah. The Vikings are an interesting team because, man, it was just 3 years ago that they were in the NFC Championship game.
Yep. And I think this team hasn't changed too much. Obviously, Diggs is gone, but you get a really good rookie pickup this last year. And now you have a team that's moving on from Kyle Rudolph for a guy like Irv Smith Jr. And it seems like they're doing really well at replacing star players and really important players in their team. It's just this defense. You're so curious about how they're going to develop, because last year they were starting 3 rookie corners and their defensive line was a mess because Everson Griffin was gone for the first time, because they've been cap strapped for years now. This is the closest they've ever been since, I don't know, the last 3 years to being at the cap level at this stage of the offseason. So it'll be interesting. And they're not a big market team. So a lot of their guys on this defense that are really important to them, that are free agents like Anthony Harris and Eric Wilson, might get re-signed for fairly cheap because their defense performed so poorly last year. But they're very important players. So it'll be cool to see what they can do.
They're a team that's hit all of their offensive draft picks, but missed on all of their defensive ones. Like, they all underperformed on the defensive side, on the offensive side
for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and so they're a team that, man, I forget what pick they got for the Diggs trade, who they drafted with that pick.
I don't know what pick exactly it was,
but what it comes down to is they replaced him with Jefferson, and Jefferson's, man, as number one looking as you could have for a wide receiver. He's a stud.
And I mean, obviously you have Adam Thielen too, so it's they got a 7th round pick. Oh, the Vikings traded Diggs and a 7th round pick for the 22nd overall last year, which I believe was used for a cornerback, not Jefferson. I can't remember. They also got a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, and a 4th round pick this year.
So that'll help them with their being replacing guys on their defense for cheap.
Yeah, I'm not going to look up the draft pick. Let's move on. It'll be interesting what they do. They do need a lot of guys on the defense. Edge was mentioned, the defensive line in general, linebacker and safety.
By the way,
Gladney, their cornerback. Yep, nice. I called it. Woo. So we'll see how their defense progresses. That'll be the most interesting thing. All right, we just talked about the NFC North. I'm looking on the show doc here, and it looks like you might have something to say.
It's time for a hot take, Collin. Here it is. All right. The Vikings, Lions, and Bears at the start of the 2022 season, none of their current quarterbacks will be on their roster. The starting quarterback. So no Jared Goff on the Lions. No Nick Foles, no Trubisky, no whoever starts for them, the Bears, even if they draft someone or trade for someone, that person, like an Andy Dalton, will not be the starter in 2022, for example. And then the Vikings will also move on from Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
That's my hot take. And here's why I say this, is because Cousins has a $45 million cap number next year, with Innovate being dead and $35 million in cap savings if the Vikings just cut him clean.
Okay,
$35 million in cap savings.
That's a lot.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And for a team that's, like we're talking about, with all these extra picks in the later rounds, they're going to be able to build a team the right way, especially if they can get that $35 million next year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, the most important piece on any team is always the quarterback, and we see that time in and time out. I don't agree with your hot take. I think Kirk Cousins will stay.
I think he's a hot take. If everyone agrees with it, it's not a hot take.
For sure. I'm just giving my opinion on it. I think Kirk Cousins stays, and I think he probably extends. I think he's one of those that'll take an extension and even out some money.
I think the Vikings end up being not making the playoffs again. People start to get mad. Kirk Cousins is always talked about being wishy-washy, terrible in primetime games. There's all sorts of narratives about him that people don't like.
He had his first primetime game win.
Yeah, I know, but it was rough. And for a while, it was rough. But I'm just saying, I think that they're going to move on from him. And if they have a bad year and they have a high draft pick, they'll draft a quarterback next year and cut Kirk.
Yeah.
That's my vision. And then the Lions, they don't want Jared Goff. Let's just be honest. His cap number is terrible. He wasn't good the last 2 years. He in the Sean McVay offense, he was allowed to succeed because he just had awesome players, skill position players around him. On the Lions, he has a couple good skill position players that are awesome. But you can't tell me you would take any single one of the Lions players, maybe aside from Kenny Golladay, over a Robert Woods or a Cooper Kupp. But man, they're pretty comparable to me. Those players are all pretty close. So I don't see them wanting to keep that Jared Goff contract on the books. A, B, he's not going to perform well, and
yeah, nobody's arguing you with Jared Goff, so you don't need to.
Yeah, I know. I'm just explaining my point. So that's what I believe.
All right, so let's move on to our last piece. We told you we would talk about J.J. Watt later. Gavin, I'm not going to look at the show doc. What is our game for the day? What is Gavin's game?
Gavin's game. The signing of J.J. Watt made me curious. Where does he rank in terms of active sack leaders? Players in the NFL right now that have played in 2020, where does he rank on the list all time for those guys? The answer was second. Amongst current active NFL players, he has the second most sacks. A couple of guys are on the list that are still considered active because they haven't officially retired. Those guys are, I'm just doing the top 10. Okay. So those guys were Terrell Suggs was number 1 with 139 sacks, but he didn't play.
Yeah, I got you.
And then also on the list was Cameron Wake, who hasn't played since he played for the Titans, and he was 4th with 100.5. Okay. And Clay Matthews, who would have been 10th with 91.5.
Okay, he and I know he isn't actually retired.
He was hurt and didn't play. I just left those guys off the list.
Fair.
So it was easier for you to think of guys that played last year when you made it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can you name the other 9 players in the top 10? No, it's actually not when you're thinking names.
I know. I'll get there. I think I might be able to get like 4 or 5.
Let me set this up for you in terms of like a question and answer clip status.
Yeah.
All right. Collin, can you name the top 10 active sack leaders in the NFL, considering the fact J.J. Watt is number 2?
Number 2. All right. J.J. Watt being number 2. I only know that Chandler Jones is on the list because he was mentioned as soon as the J.J. Watt signing happened. So Chandler Jones.
Yeah, he's 6th with 94.5.
I'm going to start it with my boy JPP because Bucks.
Yeah, he's 8th with 89.
Okay. See, this is where it starts to get harder because I have to think about, maybe who's like a situational pass rusher now where they're at that stage of their career.
I'll tell you, on this list, only one guy is a situational pass rusher.
Okay.
The rest are all still studs.
I have to think. It's hard. Can I have a list of teams up in front of me? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Just to help me think. All right.
Go for number 1. Think who has the most sacks.
I don't. It's hard. This is a lot harder when you don't prepare for it. I don't know the game until I get into the game. Khalil Mack.
No, Khalil Mack would have been 14th on this list. I actually kind of misled you. I left Clay Matthews off, but I also left the number 1 guy on, but he didn't play in 2019.
Well, now
but not because of like his career's over by any means, just because he had a season-ending injury early on. Von Miller.
Oh, okay.
And it's just, I left him on. That's a different situation than the other 3 guys.
Okay, yeah, that one's harder for me, just because I don't know.
Number 1, he had 106, by the way. So Watt is 5 behind him.
All right. Lawrence, DeMarcus Lawrence.
Nope.
Shoot, I don't know. Myles Garrett's not up there.
Nope.
D Ford's not up there.
Nope.
Joey Bosa, maybe.
Nope.
Not. There's no way TJ Watt's up there yet.
Nope.
Trying to think. This is actually a lot harder than you would think. Ryan Kerrigan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan Kerrigan's 5th, 95.5.
Okay.
We talked about one of these guys.
Everson Griffin?
Everson Griffin's right on the outside. He was like at 12. But what we talked about one of the guys in the episode today who might be a cap casualty. It's a choice between him and another guy.
Oh, Calais Campbell?
Calais Campbell's on that list. He has 94 or 92.
Cameron Jordan?
Cameron Jordan is right in between Kerrigan and Campbell at 6th.
Okay.
So you have
Zadarius Smith, maybe?
Nope. You have Von Miller, J.J. Watt. Then you're missing the guy who's 3rd.
Okay.
And then you have Chandler Jones, Ryan Kerrigan.
Carlos Dunlap?
Cameron Jordan. Carlos Dunlap is on the list, number 9.
Okay.
So you're only missing 2. Two people. Yeah, you're missing number 3 and number 10.
Okay. This is. Yeah,
Who's the
I
best
don't know.
defensive player in the NFL?
Oh, Aaron Donald.
There's number 10.
Yeah, that was a good one. It's harder to think of like defensive tackles that might be on this list.
He's the only one, and Geno's 16 or
Okay.
like 13 actually.
Okay. I don't know, man. This last one's gonna kill me, but who is it?
Justin Houston.
Justin Houston. That's a good one too. He's a
Yeah.
guy that's been really underperforming lately, though.
Yeah, I mean, but his time when he was in Kansas City, dude, that guy
Yeah,
was
for
awesome.
sure, for sure. Okay, all right. I'm okay with that. Von Miller, I feel
Yeah, you
bad
did
for,
good.
but that's just because I
But
haven't seen him.
I probably worded that a little strange because he didn't play in 2020, but he
Yeah,
just
I
is a
understood.
different
I understood.
situation than the other guys, you know.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, that's an interesting game. That was fun and it was different. Usually we do quarterback based games where I just have to like give my opinion. That one's like a stats based game. So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when it comes to like appreciating how great or JJ Watt is, like when you put him up
Yeah.
against that list and you start going through the people, it's like think about how much time this guy's missed with injury, and
sure.
he's still way up there.
For sure.
Like,
Yeah, when we talked about him a couple shows ago, it was like literally he could change a game, and he did it not long ago
Yeah.
in a playoff game. He won them. Like,
yeah. But
All right.
anyway, hey, this was a good episode.
Yeah,
I
fun.
think we are timing where we at.
we're at an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh wow, had no idea.
Yeah, we went really long again today, so your apologies were unwarranted.
Well, it's because of all the amount of cuts and everything. We spent so much time talking about each one and what it means, and
Yeah, we spent 30 minutes on news and then about 45 minutes on the divisions. It was a longer episode. We got a lot more content on the divisions, but we appreciate everybody for stopping by. We hope that you're not like offended by the fact that we go a little longer. We're enjoying talking, and like you saw, he didn't even notice that we were at an hour and 20 minutes. So this is the type of stuff that we enjoy talking about, and we kind of get lost in.
it's actually the only thing that matters.
It is kind of one of those things where you can just say football over family, football over everything,
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into this 4th episode. I know the clips on Instagram didn't get up for episode 3. We had some timing issues on my end, but I'm gonna flood the Instagram account with all of the episode 3 stuff still and link to the page as well as the clips from this episode. Next episode is gonna be awesome because it's gonna be the NFC South. Shout out the Bucks.
Yeah.
And the AFC South, shout out the Titans. It's going to be an episode that we're going to have a lot of fun talking about. No doubt. We're going to probably go way over. Expect a 10-hour episode when we start talking.
And then on top of that, there's going to be a ton of free agent moves before that as teams prepare for free agency to open up.
Maybe we do the news section in a rapid fire. And then pick 2 each to talk about, and that way we can really maybe get through them because there's gonna be a whole handful, a laundry list of cuts that happen. But anyway, here we go. Episode 5.
Thank you so much.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Football Over Family here on Twitch. You can find us at Football Over Family on Twitch, exactly as it's spelt, no spaces. You can also find our Instagram, the same exact handle, Football Over Family, no spaces. And then our YouTube channel is Football Over Family with spaces. So follow us on all of those different platforms, and you can get some different content, some clips on Instagram, the full podcast on YouTube, and then some live podcast format, as well as some question and answer, and then also just like chatting with folks on the live section of Twitch before and after the podcast. So right as soon as this is done, we will switch over and see if anybody's in chat and hang out with anybody that's there. So if you want to join us for that, feel free to do so. Our YouTube videos go live on Mondays, which is why we usually end up recording on a Sunday. Our clips come out throughout the week. So yeah, hit us up. Any last words, Gavin?
Yeah, drop a few comments what you think about the content. If you're liking the games we're playing, if you're liking the how we're talking about each division, or if you're learning something, let us know if you're learning something because we are learning with each other as we go about each team. Collin's really good and really into the cap numbers, and that helps me kind of gain a different insight into each of these divisions and their move. I more think of it on a splash perspective, a fantasy football perspective is kind of how I envision building a team. Collin's got the money side of it. So I think it's interesting to see our two opinions kind of hit. And So I'm interested if you guys are enjoying the content. So please drop a comment. Let us know if you're liking what we're doing. We're live on Twitch. Not many podcasts shoot their episode live and then record it and drop it on YouTube. So it's a pretty cool thing to do. No edits, straight through. Hour 30. We're out. Episode 5. Can't wait. Let's go.
Peace out, everybody.